Our goal is to accelerate existing state policy timelines to achieve by 2030, 80% below 1990 greenhouse gas levels, net negative emissions, which means starting drawdown so sequestration is greater than emissions, and securing resilient communities for everyone. A key program in our Climate Safe California effort is community energy resilience. And instead of perpetuating a 100-year-old grid architecture that has caused devastating wildfires and power shutoffs, we want to build a new decentralized and integrated grid that is clean, affordable, resilient, equitable, and safe. Two key principles for us in achieving this work are, number one, we must ensure a just transition for workers. And the second critical principle is to close the climate gap. We must ensure that lower income communities and communities of color are no longer disproportionately harmed by very toxic fossil fuel development, production, and use. We know that climate justice is racial justice.
I'm delighted to be working with the Climate Center, your incredible team, Kurt, and all your advocates in the Capitol. You've really emerged as a force this year in our public policy making discussions. And we know this has been a long time coming, but this campaign for a climate safe California is not only crucial, but it's scalable.
California leads the way nationally on solar, with more rooftop solar on homes than any other state. But there is a dark side to California's clean energy story. A number of studies have highlighted inequities created by incentives.
Our focus today is energy resilience. We know that people are very worried about their jobs in the current energy industry, which are providing great salaries for them, but it is an industry that is seeing the end of the line. And we leaders have to find a way to let people know there's another option. At the same time, we can't leave people behind who cannot transition.
We invest about $130 million annually to support entrepreneurs, researchers, and innovators to develop new technologies, foster innovation, and help bring clean energy solutions to the marketplace for the benefit of California's residents.
The ultimate goal is to ensure that our California energy transition provides benefits to low-income communities, provides for that equity, keeping energy affordable, and having innovations accessible.
We've been talking for years now about what's the future. You know, this is why just transition is so important. And I use the word because we don't have a better word to use. You know, what are the pathways for workers who've had an opportunity, Black and brown workers as well as white workers, indigenous workers, women workers who are working in refineries and oil drilling. Where do they go? How do we provide other opportunities for them to use their skills or to create higher value jobs?
For myself and for some, I don't want to speak for everyone in labor, obviously, because we have very different voices, but I think the idea is we want to be going towards more renewable energy generation and creating good jobs in renewable energy generation and making sure that there are standards for all of that renewable energy, but as well also thinking about how we do this in terms of what is the cost for energy versus what is the value for energy.
The battle for energy equity has been going on for so long, but we still haven't reached the point where everyone has the right advantage to take advantage of clean energy programs. So in a time where breathing polluted air has even worse effects due to the COVID pandemic, clean energy resilience is so important and so needed in all of our communities, and policies and legislation to make that possible is crucial.
The other challenge that we have is that we don't have choices. We don't have a community choice. With this, I think in Stockton they're working on it, but the entire valley, we don't have that. We just have the two large utility companies, PG&E and Southern California Edison. And while these companies supposedly are offering some sort of programs for families that, especially during the pandemic right now, are suffering and cannot pay their bills. The access of how to access those programs, the information is very limited. It's not available in many languages that are spoken in our valley, like Spanish, of course, but indigenous languages, Southeast Asian languages. So these communities are really falling through the cracks in this crisis.
Our communities aren't inherently vulnerable. And that is why we do the work we do, because we need to call out the systemic policies and structures that keep our communities in vulnerable states. To date, disaster response and recovery efforts in our community have systematically excluded the most vulnerable among us. Non-English speakers, renters, and undocumented individuals have all reported significant gaps in disaster resources.
Can I put the needs of Black, Indigenous, people of color communities first in designing energy solutions? So I talked about, and we've heard today, some of the programs where it's like, oh, maybe 25% of the programs are designated for disadvantaged communities. So if 25% of those programs are for disadvantaged communities, does that mean then that 75% are going to more affluent, wealthy communities? And why is that? So there's some racism for you, and you should answer those questions and think really hard about how we're going to change those institutions and the systems that are causing those inequities.
I believe it's extremely important that community choice energy organizations partner with and uplift Black, Indigenous, and people of color communities, and realize that there's a lot of work to be done in this area.
We see supporting community resiliency as a key part of supporting our low-income community. And while the UPS program focuses on community scale resiliency, Project Sunshine allows us to directly support low-income individuals. This program launched 2 years ago and provided funding for low-income households to install solar panels. By adding state and MVCP funds, we were able to put solar panels on 20 low-income homes at no cost to the customer.
The more challenging nut to crack that California is really working on across policy and across technology sectors is what to do about the vast majority of low-income folks who live in, what's called naturally occurring affordable housing, or affordable housing that's affordable but not protected as affordable. So there are concerns that if we go big on retrofitting these properties, all of a sudden they're a lot more valuable and the rents get raised, and the low-income tenants who brought those incentives to the property in the first place are no longer able to benefit. So I think it's a difficult challenge, but it's certainly not one that we can shy away from if we want to make progress, not only for buildings and for the global climate efforts, but really also for benefiting the low-income customers and the EJ customers that we are trying to benefit.
The programs that are around don't necessarily fit with the opportunity that we have to deploy, a larger solar and storage system, for example, on a low-income multifamily affordable housing that is big enough to deliver bill savings to the tenants, as opposed to just kind of thinking about it as trying to minimize the number and maximize the scale, which is kind of how the CAISO and different regulatory bodies want to think about things. Do less of them and do them bigger. Well, that doesn't meet the need of all these distributed resources and assets that we have.